Hi, Commissioner Carnes, can you hear us? Hi, Commissioner Carnes, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Great, I'm gonna put you back in the waiting room until we're closer to 10.
Okay, thanks. All right, good morning, everyone. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Ms. Linker.
Commissioner Cardenas?
Here.
Commissioner Hatch?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
Chair Matich?
Here. Well, good morning, everybody. Before we begin, I wanted to have two brief announcements. The first is I'm very pleased to announce, I know we issued a press release about this not too long ago, but Angela Brereton has assumed the role of Chief of Enforcement. I've worked with Angela before, even when I was in private practice. She brings 2 decades or more of experience with the Political Reform Act. She's the prior Assistant Chief of Enforcement, and I couldn't be more pleased that the Commission was able to hire Angela as our Chief going forward. So congratulations, Angela. The second announcement I wanted to make was really to just compliment our staff across the board on their performance this year in a very historically busy election year for our agency. First, pointing to the Enforcement Division, we had roughly 1,000 complaints that we processed during this election cycle, including 180 submissions through the AdWatch program, which is still up and running. People can still submit complaints for AdWatch. And I just wanted to highlight the efforts of Ruth Yang, Chris Burton, David Castro, Dominica, Jeff, and the rest of the investigators on our team for the excellent job that they did processing those complaints during this, again, historically busy time period. And I know I just mentioned about 1,000 complaints for the election cycle. Almost 500 of those came in the last month before the election. So when I say these folks were busy, they were incredibly busy, especially during the month of October and November for us. So great work, guys. I also want to recognize the works of our legal division. And for those that don't know, it's the legal division employees who process the email requests for advice and telephone calls for advice. And those folks, I mean, I can't really believe these numbers, but just in October alone for 2020, 1,078 email requests for advice and 900 telephone call requests, so about 2,000 requests for advice just in the month of October alone. I know Ivy is responsible for overseeing our email advice, Elena overseeing our phone advice, and again, I just want to say thank you to our staff for the incredible job that they've done. And our admin staff obviously continues to do a great job. So thank you to all of our staff for their work during this time. I don't know if other commissioners had anything to add to that. Commissioner Wilson?
Chair Matich, I would just reiterate what you said, and the staff has been very responsive and has worked very hard over the last several months in particular. And as one of the newer commissioners, I find them to be very efficient and responsive. So thank you.
All right. And last but not least, before I forget, Jay Waringa, he just popped up on my Zoom screen, so it reminded me. Jay was responsible for spearheading a public service announcement campaign for us to get the information out to voters of where they can go on our website and other resources they need to track the sources of money and the identity of folks who are contributing to our campaigns. So I'd be remiss not to recognize Mr. Waringa's efforts in that regard as well. So thank you. And with that, we will go ahead and move to item number 1. This is public comment for items not on the agenda. Is there any public comment on the telephone for items not on today's agenda?
This is Steve Petzold in Santa Clarita, California.
Good morning.
Oh, hello. Does that mean proceed?
You may. You have your 3 minutes, sir.
Yes, I just wanted to bring back this case about College of the Canyons Foundation. The report that Galena gave during the director's report at the end of last meeting seemed to relate more to a case that I brought against the actual college and not a report against the foundation. As if you've read my letter, you've seen that I am very concerned that through the transparency portal, I cannot find the status of the case against the foundation 209-475. When I look at the transparency portal, it says it's not NA, not applicable. So I did send an email when I became aware of this to the Commission Assist staff, and I have not received a response as to what is the status of the case against the foundation 2019-475. I would like to get a response to that, since I'm very concerned that this was up for a stipulation, and then I was told it was going to have further investigation, and now I can't find a status on the website. So that's my primary concern today. The College of the Canyons and the College of the Canyons Foundation have delayed the public records request that I put through so that I can conduct my own investigation as to the source of the funds for the $150,000 contribution to the Yes on Measure E committee. I had been advised that I would be able to pick that up today, or at least review the documents today. They are restricting my access on the campus to a specific area within the public safety office there. They say their campus is closed, and they're making a provision for me to go into one specific office and review the documents, and then they will charge me for any copies. So again, I thank the commission for its interest in these cases, and I would like to find out what the status is on this 2019-475. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Petzold. As I referenced at last meeting, I know the enforcement staff is working diligently to review the information related to your cases, and at the appropriate time, we will have a public discussion of that. And I trust that our enforcement division will be getting back to you with an update on the status of your cases soon. So thank you again for your comment.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Is there any further public comment for items not on the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to item number 2. That's approval of the October 2020 Commission hearing meeting minutes. Do any commissioners have any questions, comments, or edits to our hearing minutes from October 2020? Hearing and seeing none, is there any public comment on our hearing minutes? Hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion?
I move adoption of the minutes, or approval, I should say.
Thank you, Commissioner Hatch. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Wilson. Ms. Linker?
Commissioner Cardenas?
Yes.
Commissioner Hatch?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Chair Manich?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Excellent. We'll now proceed to our enforcement consent calendar. These are items 3 through 9 on our agenda. Ms. Brereton, welcome to the table. I understand that enforcement is requesting to pull item 7. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Then we'll proceed with the enforcement consent calendar. Items 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 8 and 9 are default proceedings. Do any commissioners wish to pull an item from the consent calendar for separate discussion? Hearing and seeing no such motion. Is there any public comment on the consent calendar? Hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Wilson.
Second.
It's a tie between Commissioner Cardenas and Commissioner Hatch. We'll go ahead and, Commissioner Cardenas, you get it this time. Second to Commissioner Cardenas. Ms. Linker, would you care to call the roll?
Commissioner Cardenas?
Yes.
Commissioner Hatch?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Chair Manich?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you. We'll proceed to item 10. These are regulations governing the filing of statements of economic interest. Mr. Bainbridge, I believe it's you and Commission Counsel Mr. Christie presenting on this item. And there you are, Mr. Christie. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners Cardenas, Hatch, and Wilson. Matthew Christie here on behalf of the Legal Division to present for adoption a proposed update of the Commission's regulations governing filing of statements of economic interest. The proposed update would improve the clarity and guidance of those regulations, but would not reduce overall disclosure. Many existing processes for the filing of SCIs were initially designed with only paper filings in mind, and the proposed update would revise these processes to account for the rise of electronic filing and related logistical issues. The Commission's SCI unit requested the proposed update to achieve two primary policy goals. The first was to modernize the Commission's regulations governing the filing of SCIs in response to the rise in electronic filing. And the second was to make filing more efficient for public officials who hold multiple positions subject to filing requirements. More specifically, the proposed update would revise filing officer and filing official duties with respect to SCIs by providing separate processes for the review of SCIs submitted in paper format and those submitted electronically. These revisions are intended to improve clarity and guidance with regard to processing both types of SCIs, thereby improving FPP staff and agency staff efficiency. The proposed update would also authorize a public official who holds multiple positions subject to filing requirements to file an expanded SCI for all those positions, subject to specified requirements and conditions. These new provisions have been designed to reduce duplicative filings and to improve staff efficiency. Finally, the proposed update would also revise processes for certain specified officials' filing of SCIs to better accord those processes with the capabilities of existing electronic filing systems. The proposed update was presented for pre-notice discussion at the September Commission meeting, and helpful comments and direction from commissioners and comments from the Los Angeles County Executive Office, other filing officers, and other interested parties have all been incorporated into the draft regulations up for adoption today. Staff would like to thank all commenters for their input, with special thanks to John McKibben and Don Garcia of LA County. Since pre-notice discussion of the proposed update, the most significant changes to the update are as follows. We have changed the regulations to incorporate direction from the Commission and comments from interested parties. In addition, we've added an express listing requirement for additional positions covered by a public official's expanded SCI under the new regulation authorizing expanded SCIs, Regulation 18723.1. We also overhauled that regulation in order to consolidate various provisions within the version of that proposed regulation presented for pre-notice discussion into a single, widely applicable provision governing expanded statements. Finally, we deleted a provision of Regulation 18730, which previously provided the authority for filing an expanded statement in order to consolidate all provisions of Commission regulations governing the filing of expanded statements in one place in new Regulation 18723.1. Prior to today's meeting, Trish Mayer raised an excellent point about the updated roster requirement due date of new Regulation 18115B5. That provision requires a filing official to submit a roster of filers by December 1st of each year. However, Trish noted that some jurisdictions might not know who their elected officials are until after December 1st during election years. And for that reason, we have updated the due date for these rosters to December 15th. We checked with the SCI unit and we've confirmed that this would not be problematic. And so accordingly, on page 3 of line 19 of page 3 of new 18115, the due date for the roster has been updated from December 1st to December 15th. so long as the commission approves of that change. The proposed update would improve the efficiency of the FPPC and other agencies' processing of SEIs, would streamline processes for certain public officials' filing of SEIs, and would not reduce overall disclosure. The proposed update is further explained in the commission memo. The SEI unit has been incredibly helpful in preparing the proposed update, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank Ju Wang, Cindy Glasser, and the rest of the unit for their invaluable guidance and input in revising these regulations. I want to thank the commissioners for your time and consideration, and with that, I would be happy to answer any questions about the proposed update.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Christie. Do commissioners have questions or comments for Mr. Christie on this item? Commissioner Wilson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Christie. Excellent explanation of the streamlined process for SEIs. How many local elected officials approximately would be impacted by this change? So you have a ballpark figure on that?
When you're talking, Commissioner, about local officials affected by the change, we're speaking of the expanded statement authority. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so the commission is the filing official for approximately 19,200 filers that file under section 87-200 and the following sections. There are over 400 cities, 68 counties, and I think in excess of 200 agencies. But the ones that would be filing with us are those that file under section 87-200. And I don't have an exact number on how many of those officials would be authorized to file expanded statements. I know that it would only be those that hold multiple positions subject to filing requirements, but I'm sorry that we don't, or at least I don't have that data in front of me with a rough estimate of how many officials would be roped in by the provision.
Well, the figures you provided me were more specific than I was actually looking for. The question I wanted to really ask is, what is going to be the process for making sure that those elected officials and the individuals, who run the local governments, how are they going to be informed of these changes? Will they all be notified via email? Because we can't assume that they're going to necessarily be proactive and go to the FPPC's website to find out about these changes.
I think you raise an excellent point, Commissioner, and I think we are in the process of preparing both a fact sheet, which is solely dedicated to the changes in this update, trying to explain them and provide further insight into which officials would be authorized to take advantage of the expanded statement provision. But we also have a plethora of other guidance and instructions for Form 700 that we're planning on redressing to make sure that any changes by the proposed update will be incorporated into those materials. And I know that, And I know that in speaking with Alana and some of the people in our education department that we're going to make an effort to reach out in order to be proactive, in order to make sure that all the people that should be abreast of these changes, the filing officials and filing officers, will be.
Okay, thank you. Excellent presentation, and I commend you and everyone involved on the excellent work on this project. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson.
Do other commissioners have questions or comments for Mr. Christie? All right, seeing none. Do we have any public comment on the telephone on item 10? Hearing none and seeing no digital public comment, do we have a motion?
Move for adoption.
Motion, Commissioner Hatch. Sorry, Mr. Bainbridge pointed out that the motion should be to approve subject to the one amendment Mr. Christie discussed with regard to the, I believe it's the December 15th filing or date, correct?
That's correct, Chairman.
All right. Is
So
that
moved,
acceptable?
Chair. Yes.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Wilson. Ms. Linker?
Commissioner Cardenas?
Yes.
Commissioner Hatch?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Chair Matich?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Christie, for all of your work, for all the work of the SEI unit on this, and everyone who lent a hand. Good work.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. We will now proceed to item 11. This is our biennial cost of living adjustment, COLA, to the monetary limits in the PRA. These are amended regulations 18545, 18700, 18730, 18940.2. Presenting today are Assistant General Counsel Brian Lau and our Regulations Coordinator Amanda Apostol. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Manage and Commissioners. I'm Amanda Apostol with the Legal Division. The Commission is charged with making a biannual cost of living adjustments to certain statutory limitations under the Act. Staff is here today to propose the recommended amendments to the cost of living adjustments for the period of January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2022. Regulation 18545 reflects the updated contribution limits and voluntary expenditure ceiling amounts for candidates for elective state office and statewide office holders. Updated Regulation 18940.2 reflects the adjusted gift limit, which has increased to $520. That is a $20 increase compared to the previous biennial period of $500. The new adjusted gift limit is stated in Regulation 18700 Basic Rule and Guide to Conflict of Interest Regulations, and is also restated in Regulation 18730 Provisions of Conflict of Interest Code. Today, we request the proposed amendments be adopted as submitted.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions or comments for Ms. Apostol? Sorry. Hearing and seeing none. Is there any public comment on item 11? Hearing and seeing none. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Wilson.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Cardenas. Ms. Linker?
Commissioner Cardenas?
Yes.
Commissioner Hatch?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Chair Matich?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you very much, you guys. Good work.
Thank you.
Moving right along, item 12. This is our legislative update with our legislative counsel, Ms. Nakano. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Staff is continuing to develop the proposals previously approved by the Commission and to engage with potential authors and other interested parties. Additionally, the Law and Policy Committee approved a motion at their October meeting to recommend that the Commission authorize staff to develop an additional legislative proposal on behested payment reporting. For some brief background, behested payments are payments between third parties that were made at the behest of an elected officer or member of the Public Utilities Commission. Payments over $5,000 in the aggregate from the same source in the same calendar year are required to be reported by the officer or member if they meet certain conditions, including that the payment was made principally for a legislative, governmental, or charitable purpose. Currently, officers and members are required to file first with their agencies within 30 days of the behested payment. For state agencies, the agency is then required to forward a copy to the Commission within another 30 days, and for all other agencies, the agency is required to forward a copy to the local filing officer. State agencies currently have 3 options for forwarding those copies to the Commission. They can submit a hard copy, or they can submit by email or through an electronic filing system on the FPPC website. This proposal, as reviewed by the Law and Policy Committee, would require elected state officers and PUC members to file electronically on the FPPC website directly with the Commission instead of first with their agency within 30 days of the behested payment. The proposal would require all other elected officers to file directly with their local filing officer instead of first with their agencies, and would authorize electronic filing for those filers and clarify that an electronic filing is an original filing. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Nakano. Do commissioners have any questions for Ms. Nakano?
I have a technical question, Chair Matich. Thank you, Mr. Nakano. Just a quick question. Are there plans just to get legislation drafted, or are you looking to have legislation introduced, or will that decision be made in early part of next year?
I believe at this point, we're just looking for authorization to develop the legislation and begin talking to people and gather interest, or see if there's interest.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I ask that question is finding an author is probably not going to be that challenging, but once you find an author, my recommendation would be, in consultation with the chair and the executive director and legal counsel, to determine whether it's feasible to introduce that legislation based on feedback from chairs of the election committee, and then to also just kind of get a sense for whether it'll just be a bill that's introduced, or whether the bill, based on your professional assessment, has a good chance of moving, through the process. So that'd be my only recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Do other commissioners have questions for Ms. Nakano? Commissioner Hatch?
I didn't ask to be recognized.
What did you say? Okay, sorry, I couldn't tell from your Zoom feed if you were asking to make a comment. All right, well, thank you, Ms. Nakano, for your presentation. At this point, I think Commissioner Cardenas and I did hear this proposal from Ms. Nakano in Law and Policy recently. It is something that would create an efficiency and would be consistent with our overarching goal of modernizing the Act and get away from paper filings. So at this point, I would like to move that the Commission authorize Ms. Nakano to explore that concept with the relevant stakeholders to see whether or not that's feasible or not, and then report back to us.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Ms. Linker?
Commissioner Cardenas?
Yes.
Commissioner Hatch?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Chair Matich?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ms. Nakano.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now move to item 13. This is our fiscal year 2020-2021 first quarter expenditure report. And we will have Ms. Hahn, our Chief of Administration, to present. Good morning, Ms. Hahn.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioner. I would like here to present to you the first quarter expenditure of 2021. As you can see by the number, we're pretty much on target on our expenditures. And I would like to submit the report as is, unless any commissioner have a question for me at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Do other commissioners have questions for Ms. Hahn? Well, I have a question, Ms. Hahn, somewhat related to our 2020-2021 budget. It's my understanding that the state has asked agencies to identify ways to potentially reduce their operating costs. I think the number was 5% that I saw. Can you confirm that request, in fact, is something that has been made to our agency, and whether that's part of the 2020-2021 budget, or if that's part of a subsequent budget, just so we can start being aware of that and thinking about that as commissioners?
Certainly. Actually, the request has been from the governor's office and Department of Finance, asking each agency to reduce their operation costs by 5% effective 2021, meaning July of 2021.
So that would be the 2021-2022 budget?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. All right. Is there any public comment on item 13? Hearing and seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Appreciate it. All right, moving to item 14, our committee updates. We did have a Law and Policy Committee meeting recently, as I just alluded to. Commissioner Cardenas and I heard from our legislative counsel, Ms. Nakano, on the proposal with respect to streamlining the filing of behested payment reports that we just discussed. So we heard that. We also had a discussion about potentially revising our commissioner compensation policy for the part-time commissioners on our body. Commissioner Cardenas, did you want to offer some comments and some gloss on that discussion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I believe this is going to be coming back in December to the committee with the hope that it would then be forwarded to the full board at its December meeting. And what's under consideration is the possibility of delegating to the chair a decision on whether to amend the commission's existing compensation policy, subject to his consideration of recommendations in this regard that would be made by potentially a three-member task force consisting of, I believe, the executive director of the commission, a former commissioner of the FPPC, and some type of a legal and political ethics type of person, either within the teaching academy or otherwise in the realm of ethics, to consider the matter and make a recommendation to the chair, and then the chair, with the full commission's delegated authority, to make a determination on whether the existing compensation policy should be changed, and if so, in what way. And what has prompted this this concern is we are held, or we hold elected and appointed officials throughout the state to certain standards in the area of conflict of interest, and I think it is prudent for this commission to never again be in the position of having to vote on any change, i.e. increase, to the compensation policy, which by definition means commissioners are voting to amend, i.e. increase their own income stream. I think it's bad form. It's inconsistent with our charge, and I think that that an independent body making recommendations to the chair is an adequate and equipped, but perhaps more to the point, transparent and conflict-free means by which to make this kind of a determination. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Cardenas. And again, this is a concept that in law and policy we've discussed now, and we have asked staff to report back at the next law and policy meeting on what those options would look like, with the idea being that it'll come back to the full commission for approval and discussion at hopefully the December meeting. So I just want to make sure commissioners understand that that the policy has not changed yet. We're thinking about ways of potentially changing it, but everybody on the commissions can have an opportunity to weigh in on that at the appropriate time. Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you, Chair Matich. I had the opportunity to watch a couple of the Law and Public Policy Committee hearings, and I just want to commend the Chair and Commissioner Cardenas on all their hard work. A lot of in-depth information that has been shared with the public, and I appreciate all of your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional commissioner comments about the law and policy report? Hearing and seeing none. Do we have any public comment on item 14? All right. Thank you very much. We'll move on now to item 15, our executive staff reports. Welcome Ms. Brereton to the table, our new Chief of Enforcement for the Enforcement Division report.
Thank you, Chair Matich and Commissioners. I am submitting my report as is, but I would also like to make a few comments, if I may.
Please.
As you know, we were very busy for the election cycle this time around. And so I wanted to expand a little bit on the numbers that you mentioned earlier, and then also send some kudos out to my staff. So first, regarding complaints and referrals, for the pre-election for the November election, we received 445 complaints. We opened 112 cases from those. And on top of that, we also received 239 pre-election referrals from filing officers to, and those are primarily to get people to file before the election. Then from March, right after the primary election through right after the general election, we received a total of 978 complaints. We did reject 492 of those. So it's a lot of processing going on over that period of time. Comparing the general elections for 2018 and 2016, in 2018, we received 413, and in 2016, we received 307. So there was a considerable increase in the amount of complaints that we received during the pre-election period for this general election than in the previous two that we've had. These numbers do not include AdWatch. AdWatch, we separately calculated. We began AdWatch this year in January, and since that time, we received about 180 submissions. 14 of those were for public mailers. So, and that only began in October. So, as we're getting the word out more, I'm sure we will get more regarding mailers at public expense as well. In 2018, by contrast, we received about 150 submissions for AdWatch for the November election. So again, we've had an increase, and our staff has been handling them admirably. The increase in work has been tremendous, but everybody is staying on top of it and doing the best that they can with working from home and all of the COVID restrictions, and still getting things done. So I did want to share one success story that we had with the pre-election cases. We filed an injunction against a woman by the name of Anna Song. She is in the Bay Area. She is a local school board member, and she had not filed any of her pre-election statements as of the Friday before the election. So we submitted papers for an injunction in Superior Court, and she filed all of her statements on election day, which disclosed about 170,000 in activity. So it was very important, to get that disclosure before the election. One of our newest attorneys, Jenna Reinhart, is the person who handled that matter, and she did great. I should also add that Ms. Song has been before us before. We issued a default against her in March of 2019, also for failing to file. So this was really a success story to get that information available. And then my staff, I'd like to thank first our intake and support staff. Tara Stock is our manager for intake, and she and our intake staff process all of those complaints that come in and have to figure out, what are we going to do with these? So that's an incredible number for them. Jeffrey Kamagaki is our supervising investigator, and he leads our investigation team. He and the investigators managed all of the AdWatch issues and really handled that much more smoothly than the first time around. So very successful this year. Our attorneys, of course, they're, working behind the scenes to try to get the pre-elections done that the intake staff can't get to. Also working on AdWatch. Even our auditing team, who is led by Luz Benetti, they were in on some of the pre-election efforts when we had some issues about well, how is this calculating correctly? Can somebody look at this real quick for us? So even they were involved. And also Galena was integrally involved in all of our pre-election efforts this year. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Brereton. And I think you made the point. I don't think I made it clearly at the beginning, but our staff did all of this while under the COVID restrictions, which is a truly incredible thing and speaks volumes to the dedication of our staff. So, really kudos to you guys. So, thank you, Commissioner Wilson.
Well, thank you, Ms. Brereton, for your excellent presentation. The one question I had, you already answered in terms of a comparative analysis to prior general election cycles. What do you think is the reason for the spike in 2020?
I think some of it is that the election was on top of everybody's mind nationally, so that brings attention to us. So I think that probably is a contributor. And I think Galena is going to touch on some of that later too, so I don't want to steal any of her thunder.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Brereton. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Cardenas.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I just want to extend my most heartfelt congratulations and appreciation to Ms. Brereton on her ascension and appointment to her position. Lord knows she is succeeding a tremendous leader for the Enforcement Division in Ms. West. The commission staff, including the Enforcement Division, is known around the nation as first in its class. Is that Commissioner Hatch?
Yes, we've muted him though, so you can continue.
Yes, Brother Brian, you can go next, man. It's a real challenge to handle the many difficult responsibilities that are involved, I am sure, in being the head of the Enforcement Division. But knowing that we have such a capable leader who has had the opportunity to learn from the best, Ms. Galena West, is very heartening. And after almost 3 years on this commission, this is the latest tremendously positive development in the progress of our commission that gives me, and let me suggest should give all Californians tremendous pride that the Fair Political Practices Commission is continuing to progress and to improve under the leadership of Chairman Matich, but also our Executive Director, Galena West. Ms. Brereton, congratulations to you. I am so extremely happy for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cardenas. Ms. Brereton, before you go, one final thought, more of a comment, and that is one thing that I look forward to, and I hope that we can hear in December or maybe January would be more appropriate, but to have you come back to the commission and talk to us about lessons that enforcement may have learned through this election cycle, and any areas where you think we can improve our regulations or other processes to continue to help enforcement do its job. So just sort of planting the seed that at a future meeting, I think it'd be great if you could come back and report on that.
Will do. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Hatch, did you have any comments before we move on?
Thank you. I'm pleased to see that we have a new enforcement chief that seems to be running already, and welcome aboard. I also would like to thank Galena for all of her wonderful duty as chief of enforcement. I think she's blazed a trail for others to follow, and I hope that you measure up to the record. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Hatch. All right. Thanks, Ms. Burton. All right, next up, Mr. Bainbridge with the Legal Division report.
Good morning, Dave Bainbridge, General Counsel. I'll keep going on the same theme here. We saw a similar trend this election with an increase in requests for email and telephone advice. We were up over 30% over the last 2 statewide election years for October in terms of requests for advice. That's 2016 and 2018. So we had a fairly high-profile presidential election in 2016 as well, and we still saw a 30% increase in the amount of requests for advice. I'm pretty sure the same amount of staff as we had in those years as well. So they did more work. They had to do it from home. It really, it starts to sound like a broken record, but everyone around here deserves credit. Suki, Ivy, Alana, Maria, Stephen, Cynthia, Katie, Brianne, Adam, and Alex, who was taken away from us to do some contact tracing, which is a very important role she's serving. But we were actually down our most experienced PRC in the Education Division for most of the election cycle. And Sylvia, I don't want to forget Sylvia. So I wanted to give all of them credit. Also, the attorneys in our legal division. One attorney per day is on what we call phones, even though I think most of it's by email. So if there's a complicated question that comes in that the PRCs want some help answering, there's one attorney a day who's assigned to it. Jack Woodside was the one who was assigned on election day, so I just wanted to point that out. He must have done something to upset Brian, who sets the schedule. So, but all of them, every attorney takes turns, and I know it's very busy in October, so they all deserve credit for the hard work they put in. The other thing, changing gears, I would mention is we were scheduled to have a hearing, bench trial on our County of Los Angeles, or our CSAC versus FPPC case down in Los Angeles Superior Court on November 6th. That hearing was rescheduled on the motion of the court, so it'll now be set for December 4th. So we'll see if that happens in 2 weeks, but it's currently on calendar for then. And then the other thing I would mention, in the midst of the election, we also have been working on overhauling our campaign forms because the new SOS electronic system is going live at the end of February, and they needed the new forms to put into the system. So it wasn't great timing, but in addition to all the email and telephone requests we had, we also were able to get drafts of those forms ready to go over to SOS. So the commission should be seeing those next month for approval. At this point, they're just drafts, but they basically at SOS needed some place fillers. So things have been busy. Everyone has done a really great job. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bainbridge. And again, thank you to your staff for the incredible job they did with the uptick in election-related work. It's amazing to me is that, the numbers on election-related work, that's in addition to every meeting we have reg packages and work that the legal division is providing to us every month. So they're doing the election-related work on top of that as well. So kudos to your staff. Commissioner Hatch, I see that you had your hand up. Do you wish to be recognized?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question, Mr. Bainbridge, the reference to Matt Wallstrom versus the FPPC. Could you help me understand how we could undo a stipulation that occurred quite some time ago? Is that even possible?
Well, I hesitate to get too much into pending litigation. We could schedule it for a discussion maybe at the next meeting if you wanted a rundown of that case. But I'd rather not say at this point our feelings, since it is pending litigation.
Okay. Yeah, perhaps it could be scheduled in an executive session.
Yeah, Mr. Bainbridge, can we just put an executive session on the December agenda so we can update commissioners on the status of the various litigation that we have?
Yeah, we'll do that.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Bainbridge.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Hatch. Any other commissioners wish to comment on the legal division report?
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Commissioner Cardenas?
Thank you. I'm not sure that this relates particularly to Mr. Bainbridge, but for those newly elected individuals in the state, particularly who may not have any filing experience with the FPPC, how are they made aware of the need to file assuming office, SEIs, et cetera?
Sure. A lot of that responsibility falls on their filing officers, and the filing officers around the state are pretty good about getting to them and making sure they file what needs to be filed. So that's where it happens at the ground level. I think throughout the process they're reminded of the requirements for filing, and I don't know if there are other notices that get out, but I know a lot of it happens by their filing officers. It looks like Larissa Hahn has something to add.
No, they do get, their filing officer typically send an email reminding the successor to file an assuming office within 30 days of assuming office. So they'll get the notice from their filing officer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Commissioner Wilson?
My question was answered. Thank you. An excellent presentation by Mr. Bainbridge. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioners, and thank you, Mr. Bainbridge. All right, moving on to our Administration and Technology Division report. Ms. Hahn, our Chief of Enforcement, is back. Or, excuse me, Chief of Administration.
Okay, good morning, Chair and Commissioner. I would like to submit the report as is, but I would like to emphasize that as of November 6th, we still have 284 of the Form 700 non-filer out of the annual filing, and we typically, for FPPC, we're about approximately 20,000 is our whole filing for everyone that we receive. So there's 284 straggler out there that have not filed their annual Form 700. And out of the 284, we have made 140 non-filer referrals to the Enforcement Division. And that's my report. Thank you.
All right. Well, I have a question. What about the difference between the 140 you've referred and the 280?
The 140 is out of the 284. It's not an additive number. It just, we refer 140 so far of the 284 that's non-filing.
So are you continuing to refer the remainder then?
We are.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. Do other commissioners have comments, questions for Ms. Hahn? Hearing and seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Hahn, for all of your hard work. And last but not least, the Executive Director report, Ms. West.
Thank you. Thank you for all the nice things everyone said. I appreciate it. I really loved being Enforcement Chief, so I will miss it, but I'm glad to still be able to have a large impact on the agency. So for us, we did a lot in the last couple weeks that we want to give you an update about. So we, for the safety, after careful consideration for the safety of the team because of the ongoing pandemic and the uncertainty of the time, the administration's goal is still to maintain 75% of staff teleworking. So we extended our current emergency telework program to June 30th, 2021. It gives staff an ability to plan their lives out so they know what's going to happen for the next 6 months. So we went ahead and sent that out. And then also, we sent out a policy as the FPPC transitioned to the emergency remote working model by authorizing employees to stop reporting in. They incurred a cost. Some of them incurred a cost for telephone and internet. So we adopted a reimbursement policy for the employees for their internet and telephone expenses for a maximum up to $74 per month for what they've incurred in the performance of their essential work functions. So this reimbursement will be retroactive back into March when everyone started working from home. So hopefully this helps everyone with any burden that they may have incurred from having to work at home, and to make sure staff still is successful and able to function fully. So those were the two big developments in Executive Director land. But what I also wanted to talk about was when we were talking about the uptick in numbers, there was a larger interest in the election, but there was also a lot of outreach done by the FPPC itself. So Dave's unit has been doing a lot of education. The Enforcement Division also did the pre-election outreach to where they reached out to all of the counties and all the cities with populations over 100,000 having an election and got the pre-election efforts. But also what we'd like to talk about is the commission itself had a program where we sent out PSAs for the first time. So if J.Y. Renga will join us, he can give us an update on how that went.
Thank you, Galena. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Jay Waringa, Communications Director. If you recall, we showed you this PSA back when we created it before the March primary. We only had a limited trial run before that. It was created by a company called eMotion Video out of Davis. And I also want to give a shout out to the FPPC's Patricia Ballantyne, who voiced the Spanish version for us. So we did that in-house. So thanks to Patricia for NIT for putting that part of it together. So going into the general election, we were trying to reach a much more broad audience, as much as feasibly and financially possible. We decided to try both a Northern California media platform outlet, as well as a Southern California media platform outlet, with a number of different categories that we were going to try. Since we had never done this before, we wanted to see what would work and what might not work. So going forward in the future, doing more of these, hopefully we'll see what was the most effective. So in Southern California, we teamed with the LA Times Media Group using their platforms to push out the PSA. And we overperformed on all but one of the 4 categories that we tried. And the main success story down there was our partnership with their Facebook account. We had a target of 300,000 impressions, and we ended up with 900,000 impressions. So that basically boils down to about 375,000 individuals that looked at it at some point. 194,000 views totally through. People watched it all the way through and then commented, shared, and liked it upon viewing it. So that was, again, about 375,000 total individuals. In Northern California, we teamed with the McClatchy Media Group. And overall there, we overperformed on 2 of the 4 categories. We met our mark on one and we underperformed on the other. So we took the budget from that and put it into where it was overperforming. And with that, we had 600,000 impressions, which leads to about 250,000 individuals that actually watched and participated in viewing the PSA. With the LA Times, considering it's more of a, not only Southern California, but also the state's biggest media outlet, we didn't have a way to delineate geographically where some of those clicks came from. But within the Northern California campaign, we could see that the top clicks that the PSA received were from, in order, San Francisco, Sacramento, Oakland, Modesto, and San Jose. So we were able to see where people were viewing it. So overall, it leads to 600,000 plus individuals in the state that watched the PSA with 1.5 million impressions. So there's no really way of delineating or seeing if that helped drive people to the ad watch, to the legal division, to the enforcement division, but I think one can logically assume it had some role in that. Again, our overall goal and strategy going in was to increase our brand awareness, who we are, and the message of we're here and we're here to help. That's the primary goal, and I think we were very successful in that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wairinga. Do commissioners have any questions or comments for Mr. Wairinga?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Cardenas, and then we'll go to Commissioner Wilson next.
I'd like to rise to commend my fellow Trojan for his work in this regard, not to be overly provincial. It's clear that hundreds of thousands of Californians got to see the PSA, and I'm just wondering, do we get to see it?
Yes, Commissioner, it is on our website, but we can bring it back for the next commission meeting if you want to review it. But it is on our website.
Okay, I'll check it out, and if it's not too much of a trouble, if it could be shown at the next meeting, that might be cool.
Sure, and I will send it around as well individually in email to all of you after this meeting.
Thank you, Jay. Great work.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wilson?
Thank you, Chair Matich. With all due respect to Commissioner Cardenas, as a UCLA Bruin, I take issue with his Trojan comments, but thank you. Then I'd also like to, commend the Executive Director, Ms. West, on the daunting task that she's had to deal with in terms of assuming the role as Executive Director and then managing the staff in a decentralized, operation. So the feedback that I've received and observed is, you've done an excellent job in managing the staff in these challenging times. So thank you.
As a UCLA Bruin, I join wholeheartedly in Commissioner Wilson's comments. Well, kidding aside, thank you, Jay, for your great work. Commissioner Hatch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just curious, is there any existing way that we capture the information about callers who are calling in about things that they've wanted to report or ask questions on? In other words, the connection between your PSA and the callers that are calling in.
Well, Commissioner Hatch, I will follow up with the IT folks to see if there is a way internally to find any connection. Also, I guess we'd have to talk with Dave and Angela to maybe see if on any incoming calls, if we put out a sort of a question of how did you hear about us? How did you find us? That sort of thing. So maybe that's what we can add to the process.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking about.
All right. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. Thank you, Commissioner Hatch. Ms. West, did you have any additional comments for your report?
I do not.
All right. Thank you, and great job, obviously. Mr. Bainbridge, I want to go back to you briefly. A public comment just came through referencing that you had mentioned that you've sent draft campaign statements to the Secretary of State for the CARS project. And the question is it possible to get copies of those drafts? Can you respond to that?
Yeah, the draft new forms get noticed and adopted by the commission. I believe they are on our website currently. If not, they will be up soon.
Great. So those will be available from our website for public review and comment. All right. Thank you. Moving on then to item 16, commissioner comments and proposed future agenda items. Do any commissioners wish to offer up potential future agenda items at this time? Hearing and seeing none. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I moved.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wilson, seconded by Commissioner Hatch. Ms. Linker.
Commissioner Cardenas?
Wishing everybody a happy Thanksgiving, that everyone please stay safe. Yes.
Commissioner Hatch?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Chair Matich?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone, and stay safe.